Hello, good people, and welcome to Hillbilly Cat History. Signed, sealed, remembered, Circle G embraces Dr. Nick. Hello, Keith. Hello, Gunn. Thank you guys so much for coming. I appreciate seeing you here. In the year 1968, the year after the Circle G Ranch, when it was all over, and we don't know exactly when, but sometime during that year, Elvis had a very special ring created in the form of the horse which had started it all for him, Rising Sun. Now, we remember from earlier stories, earlier episodes, if you've been with us, that the first horse that Elvis rode was Domino, the horse he bought for Priscilla. But then he went and found a horse for himself, and that was the Rising Sun. Hi, chillin' in Canada. Hi, Marion. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you guys here. So on screen, you can see a picture of this ring face on. And so it's the head, the face of the Rising Sun looking right at you with diamond eyes. He's made out of 14 karat gold. And the sides of his neck, well, they curve around, and that's what makes the ring. It combines in the back. And you can see that he's in a horseshoe of many diamonds. Looks like 20 diamonds on the horseshoe. And his mane is sculpted right in, all in gold. Hi, Terry. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. So it's actually 18 diamonds, according to the description. I feel like I just counted 20, but it says 18 diamonds. And the ring also features 2 diamonds set in Rising Sun's eyes. And it was crafted in 1968 by Sol Schwartz of Abelser and Schwartz Fine Jewelry in Beverly Hills. And you can see some faint scratches on it because he wore it. He liked to wear it. And Abelser, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, and Schwartz Fine Jewelry in Beverly Hills. You know, Elvis, he established relationships, not just with people, but with the places where he bought things. And Sol's was a very important place to him. And he bought a lot of jewelry. Very personal, often handcrafted. And they were out in Beverly Hills. So we hear about, the Memphis jewelers. But there were also other jewelers. And Sol was one of them. And this Rising Sun ring, this beautiful 14 karat gold ring, well, this has become a portable relic, a sacred object that ritualizes Elvis's memory. He's had to give up the ranch because it turns out the maintenance on the ranch, well, not just in money, but just in emotional toll. The maintenance of the ranch turned out to be a lot more than he thought it would. But the dream of the ranch, what he was trying to accomplish, well, he accomplished a lot of it. And his dream isn't gone. And here he's wearing it every day. in a symbolic seal, a signed and sealed vow to remember his dream. Even if the land itself fades, the grass grows, things fall apart. He went on wearing that ranch on his finger. So that everyone could remember what he'd done. He'd only had this horse for a year. So this ring wasn't all about that horse. It was about what had just happened during that year. And 1 year previously, in January 1967, Elvis dove headfirst into horse ownership. When he bought Domino, and he bought the Rising Sun, and he bought the other horses, and he was keeping them at Graceland. And during that period, he was frequently visiting the Ben Howell and Son Saddlery in Whitehaven. Now, Whitehaven, that's basically the neighborhood in Memphis where Elvis lives. So all those houses around Elvis, that's Whitehaven. In fact, they used to have a nickname for Elvis's stepbrother, Ricky Stanley, because he had this long blonde hair when he was a 15, 16, 17-year-old. And he kept it all swept back and the feathery wings of the time that was very popular at that point in the 70s. And Elvis called him the Raven from Whitehaven. Because Ricky lived over there, went to on Dolan Street with Vernon, and he went to the Whitehaven High School. So Elvis went to this saddle shop, this place that works leather. And it's a family-owned place. And it's near his house. And he purchased a wide assortment of saddles, bridles, grooming necessities, and Western apparel. And we've seen these saddles. We've seen the grooming necessities. We've seen the bridles. And we've seen the Western apparel. It's showing up in all the pictures that we're looking at, both at Graceland and at the Circle G. Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And here's what Ron Hayes had to say about Ben Howell and Son Saddlery. Ronnie Hayes is a guy who lived in Memphis, and he says, I worked there when I first got out of the Army. I didn't make any money, but I loved working there. I got to meet so many great horse people. O'Neill, who is one of the Ben Howell and Sons, got me involved in the GCHS, which lasted 40 plus years. I believe Ronnie's referring to a horse association of some kind. And Ronnie says, I agree, the smell of leather was wonderful. I still have a wooden box that was full of imported English leather goods. Fantastic memories. So that's not a quote about Elvis or the Circle G, but it is about a place where Elvis was buying his accessories, his saddles, his bridles, his clothing, run by a family. This is one of the guys that they hired to work there, Ronnie Hayes, and he's saying it was a great place and he met great people. So one of the things that's attracting Elvis to this horse lifestyle, it's not just the horses. He's having a great time with the horses. He's learning that he loves to ride. But it's the people. He keeps meeting all these very interesting, nice, down-to-earth people. People like, later on, at Circle G, Mike McGregor. But he's meeting people like that here that are selling him different stuff you need for a horse. And chilling in Canada is saying the GCHS refers to the Germantown Charity Horse Show, an annual all-breed horse competition held in Germantown, Tennessee, known for its historical significance, focus on community service, and support for various charities. Well, that's right in line with Elvis, huh? So these people, that would have resonated with Elvis, and he would have probably known this if they were known for this within their community, which obviously they were. And here's what Stacy Howell Rebello has to say about Ben Howell and Son's salary. She says, "This was my grandfather and great-grandfather's business. My dad used to tell me all kinds of stories about this place. I remember one story. He told me how Elvis Presley came in and got a personalized belt with his name on it. He said it was before he really became famous, just locally known in Memphis. Big Ben, my great-grandfather, passed away in 1973. O'Neill, my grandfather, passed away in 1982. And Bill Howell, my dad, passed away in 2020. So that's from a descendant of the people who worked for 3 generations at Ben Howell and Son salary. And Ronnie Hayes, the guy who worked there, he says that O'Neill was probably the best all-breed announcer I ever heard. I went with him to many shows he announced, and I can tell you that he was well-liked and loved by so many. He was a very charming man." And that's the kind of people that Elvis is suddenly meeting outside his circle of entertainment associates. People who are not necessarily impressed that he is Elvis Presley. People that may not even listen to his songs, but they're nice people and they're good people. And so he keeps going back to this store to buy more stuff. And it's not just because he wants to get more stuff for the horses. And Elvis decides he's going to renovate the barn at the Graceland property himself. He doesn't just decide to get it renovated, as we've kind of assumed up to this point in the series. He went and decided he was going to do it himself. Marty Lacker says Elvis would go out in the barn every day and every night. This barn had not been used in years. So Marty's telling us that it was a dirty, nasty place. Not a place that you'd really want to go hang out in. And Jerry Schilling says this was going to be a hands-on project. He'd be the carpenter. He'd be the painter. And in the case of some extra buildings on the property that needed to be taken down to create a riding arena, he drove the bulldozer. Now, we've heard the story of that bulldozer told by Gary Pepper in a previous episode. So if you didn't see that, I encourage you to head back into the archive, which you can find in a playlist link in the description below this video. And it'll take you to all the videos that have ever come out on the channel, except for the shorts. It's more than 90 of them right now. So feel free to go back and binge them all. But that's just one of the stories, the story of the bulldozer. And Elvis didn't just renovate the barn. He built a sanctuary for his soul out there. A place where he could get away. Away from all the regular places. The places where people found him and brought their problems. Brought his problems. Priscilla Presley said we rode late in the afternoons and well into the evenings. So this is that same period when before Graceland, or before Circle G, when the horses are at Graceland, They were riding late in the afternoons and well into the evening. Elvis is getting into the rhythm of this lifestyle. Remember, at the very beginning of the series, when we talked about when Elvis went and bought a horse for his father, and they saw the Circle G and they saw the cross, it was like at dawn. It was very early in the morning. They'd gone out before dawn to buy the horse. They were coming back. So Elvis was still living that night lifestyle, even though he was getting into the horses. And so when he's riding in them in the afternoon, it's probably like right when he got up. So he normally got up around 2 o'clock. He's probably out there by 2:30 or 3 o'clock riding the horses, and he rides them into the evening. So they're kind of fitting into his lifestyle. But that's not really the rhythm of the horses. That's the end of their day. It's probably far different in the morning. But right when the horses would be waking up, about 6 a.m., that's when Elvis is going to bed. And the Circle G is going to change all that. And Marty Lacker says, Elvis fixed up a little office for himself and wrote the names of the horses on the stalls with a big red marking pen. We've heard about that pen, but now we're going to hear somebody else talk about it. Somebody new, peering from the archive. Her name is Arlene Alexander. And after Elvis passed away, she managed the Graceland stables. And she said, we just treasure that red magic marker writing in the tack room. Because if you know Elvis Presley's autograph, then you know that is his handwriting. He labeled places for ropes and the hackamores and all that stuff. And there's a note on the wall that says, don't move this TV. That's in the tack room too. So I've never been in that barn. I think that you can take tours of it, maybe on special occasions. I'm not sure. I know some people have been in and looked at it. I don't know if that red marker is still there, but at least at one point it was. And Elvis had written it on those walls himself. And Teresa Smith, who is the wife of Danny Smith, who is the son of Billy Smith, Elvis's cousin, Elvis's pretty much best friend at the very end, one of the very last people Elvis ever saw. Well, Danny Smith's wife, Teresa, on their show, Memphis Mafia Kid, here on YouTube, and if you've never seen it, great show. Danny's related directly to Elvis. He lived on the Graceland property. Was there as a teenager, 14 years old, when Elvis passed away. He's got first-hand knowledge. And Teresa asked him on their most recent show. She said, okay, the first question is from Keith. And yes, that's our Keith here from Hillbilly Cat History. Keith, who is in the comments right now, or in the chat. So everybody, give a big thank you to Keith, because he asked them this question and they answered it. He said, did you ever go to the Circle G Ranch as a kid and ride the horses? And have you any memories of that? And Danny Smith said, I do. We actually lived on the ranch. Elvis had got us a trailer and we lived on the ranch. Just like my whole life, those were wonderful times. The ranch was a beautiful place. We fished. We rode horses. We ran all over that place. Played on the bridge. Had cookouts. It was a different time. Elvis got into the Western thing and bought everybody Western coats and all. He actually bought me one. There's pictures of me with it on some horses with that little coat on. He thought, and Teresa says he thought about you. So Elvis didn't just buy saddles. He granted belonging. He didn't just give coats. He wrapped children in myth. Danny Smith continues to live that myth. And he tells us about it. And Elvis didn't just give his family and friends a place to sleep. You know, he gave them a house. He gave them a house on wheels.
He rode past Green Acres with a glimmer in his eye. Said, wouldn't it be something if my folks could live nearby? 12 trailers later, they were rolling down the lane. Concrete dreams and carpet floors, love poured out like rain. He bought one for Grandma, parked it close to his own. Said, you've got 2 homes now, no need to be alone. One for his daddy, one for his boys. He built a little kingdom, not just for show but joy. They called it trailer trash, he called it home. A place for the weary, the lost and alone. He fought through the permits, the neighbors, the noise, just to give peace to his mama and joy to his boys. It wasn't steel and wheels, it was a love made bold. A house on wheels with a heart of gold. The county said no, the neighbors raised Cain, but Bernie worked midnight through thunder and rain. They poured the pads, ran the lines, made it right, while Elvis rode a rising sun at first morning light. Some said he was foolish, some said he was grand, but he just wanted laughter to echo through the land. He sat on the floor near tears in his eyes, said, why do they fight me when I'm trying to rise? They called it trailer trash, he called it home. A place for the weary, the lost and alone. He fought through the permits, the neighbors, the noise, just to give peace to his mama and joy to his boys. It wasn't steel and wheels, it was love made bold. The house on wheels with a heart of gold. He dreamed of a commune, a circle of grace, where every soul had a warm, safe place. They tried to block it, but he made it real with a stubborn heart and a boot on the heel. They called it trailer trash, he called it home. A place for the weary, the lost and alone. He fought through the permits, the neighbors, the noise, just to give peace to his mama and joy to his boys. It wasn't steel and wheels, it was love made bold. A house on wheels with a heart of gold.
Thank you all for gathering here at Hillbilly Cat History, where we remember together and listen for the echoes. And today we explore healing on the grounds of the Circle G. And Dr. Nick, who we met yesterday, he told us that after he had treated Elvis, Elvis confided that he needed to leave the next day for what he called a fairly physical type of movie. And he said, I don't think I'm going to feel like going. And so it seems to me that Dr. Nick's the only person that Elvis actually said this to. Others saw signs. Elvis didn't seem happy as the days approached. He was eating a lot, and he was gaining weight, and he will eventually show up overweight on the set. It will cause issues and delays. But here we can see Dr. Nick. Dr. Nick says, before I left, Elvis had a request. So they're there in a trailer on the Circle G property. It's February 26th, 1967. Elvis has owned the Circle G for about 3 weeks. And that trailer's got to be new because it didn't come with the property. And Elvis, he's had his own issues looked at. He had some saddle sores, some very raw parts in some very private areas. And Dr. Nick has given him ointment and prescriptions. And Elvis says, well, Dr. Nick says that Elvis asked him, he said, he told me his grandma had a history of heart disease and had been sick for several days. Since I would be passing Graceland on my trip back to Memphis, he wondered if I could stop and examine her. Naturally, I agreed. I could not wait to see the interior of Graceland. So Dr. Nick doesn't really know or understand, apparently, that this isn't just a request from Elvis for the doctor to see his grandmother. His grandma is sick, and he knows his grandma is sick and stubborn and won't go to the doctor. So this does provide an excellent way to get her treated. And maybe that was as much on his mind as his own saddle sores when he decided it was time to bring in Dr. Nick. But this is a test of loyalty. You know, he's already given him one test. You've got to come all the way out to Circle G to see me. And supposedly, Dr. Nick did not know it was Elvis until he got there. And now Elvis is telling him, you know, it's me. You've treated me, but here's another test. Can you go treat my grandmother? And Elvis must trust him, otherwise he wouldn't send him to his sick grandmother. There's no way he would subject her to that. So he must really, truly like Dr. Nick. And you've got to wonder, with his grandmother sick, and his Uncle Pat just passed away, you know, is the mortality of his own family heavily on his mind? I'm sure that it is. Grandma's sick, Delta is with her, Delta's husband just passed away. And Delta and Grandma are in the same room. We've seen that from earlier episodes. And Dr. Nick doesn't really see any of this. What he sees is it's a chance to see the interior of Graceland, and he is very curious, just like everybody else that lives in Memphis. But he's also a good guy, and so it's not a burden to him to stop. And he is interested in it. And he truly is a nice, talkative person that likes to meet other people. And so he does have a nice chat with Minnie Mae, who is Elvis's grandmother, who also goes by the name of Dodger. You may have heard that in other stories. Dr. Nick says, after I met Elvis's grandma, Minnie Mae Presley, who appeared to be in her mid-70s, I was glad I had come. She had a bronchial infection in addition to asthma and was having difficulty breathing. We chatted for a while. I warned her of the signs of pneumonia and left several prescriptions. So Dr. Nick spent some personal time there with Grandma, probably in her room. She had chairs in there, and they were grouped around the television. She loved to watch the soap operas. She may have even been watching some soap operas at the time. Well, probably not. It was Sunday, as Dr. Nick said in the last episode, and there's not really any soap operas on Sunday. But they probably were in that room, sitting in those chairs, talking to each other. And he was probably there for a little while. And Dr. Nick says, then Elvis called. And he told the maid to ask if I could return to the ranch. And apparently Elvis hung up at that point. And I'm not even sure that it's Elvis that called. Might have been one of the guys. Probably was. But Elvis had called back to the house and told the maid to ask Dr. Nick to head on back. Now, how did Elvis know Dr. Nick would be there long enough to receive that call? That's part of the test. If Dr. Nick had just shown up and he quickly treated Minnie Mae and just rushed off again, probably would have failed the test. Wouldn't have been there to get the call. Wouldn't have been able to come back to the Circle G because would have never received the invitation. It's unlikely, in my mind, and for you it might be different if it is. Feel free to put it into the chat or the comments, but in my mind, Elvis wasn't going to try a second time. He wasn't going to track Dr. Nick down. Either Dr. Nick was spending sufficient time with his grandmother, or he didn't. But he was still there, and the maid told him that he needed to head on back to the Circle G. And Dr. Nick, being a logical fellow, he said, I'll just call him and ask what he needs, I thought. But Elvis was not near a phone when I called, so I drove back to the Circle G. Well, of course Elvis wasn't near a phone when he called, because even if Elvis was near a phone, he wanted Dr. Nick to come back to the Circle G, so he wasn't going to get on the phone and argue it out. Come on back, Dr. Nick, or don't. I mean, this is the test. You've had to come once, you've had to go see Minnie Mae, you stayed long enough, you've made it past everything. You don't seem to know it, though, because now he's got the invite back. But Dr. Nick, he heads on back. And when he gets there, Dr. Nick says Elvis explained that the cast and crew of Clam Bake were in Hollywood, ready to shoot his new movie. And he had decided his saddle sores were still too painful for him to travel. Elvis knew it would be expensive if he didn't show up on time. Elvis thought the colonel needed to be informed he would be delayed, so that the colonel could utilize the 2 days for some other aspect of the movie. So Dr. Nick is telling us that Elvis is aware, probably much more so than Dr. Nick even realizes, and on a much greater scale than Dr. Nick realizes, of his financial responsibilities, and of the ripple effect of those responsibilities, and of the people who will be harmed when he doesn't show up for the clam bake shooting, for the filming. But he knows and has faith that the colonel can work this out. It's just a few days. The colonel's a genius. He'll smooth it all out. He'll get it taken care of. But Elvis doesn't really want to tell the colonel himself. Don't really know the reasons for that. Could be a lot of different ones. But what Dr. Nick says is Elvis decided it would be better if I told Parker of the dilemma. Elvis called Colonel Parker and quickly handed the phone to me with a mischievous grin. So Elvis tells Dr. Nick, I think it'd be a lot better if you talk to the colonel, dials the phone and hands it over. You got another test for Dr. Nick. Are you going to jump to save Elvis here? Or will you back off and let Elvis tell the colonel himself? And for Elvis, this is a strategic move. A doctor is telling the colonel directly there's a medical issue. This isn't Elvis is being lazy. Elvis is making an excuse. Elvis is so laid up he can't even make the call himself. It's got to be Dr. Nick who's talking to the colonel. And that will give emotional strength and truth to the colonel when he tells others who he's going to have to tell. People who brought money to the table. People who are ready to shoot this movie. People who are now losing money. When the colonel tells them, medical necessity, I talked to the doctor myself. It's true. He did. So Elvis has provided that to the colonel. And this film itself, Clambake, this beach and bikini rob, this is exactly the antithesis of what Elvis is trying to build here on the ranch. Elvis is trying to build something mythic. And that's not Clambake. Elvis is trying to build something sacred. And that's not Clambake. Clambake is spectacle without soul. And Elvis is all about soul right now. So going to Clambake at this moment doesn't fit with him internally. His body is rebelling to it. His spirit is rebelling to it. He's eating too much. He's gaining weight. It's weighing him down into his saddle, and he's got these saddle sores. He's trying to escape all of his issues on horseback. And Dr. Nick is now talking to Colonel Parker to gain a few more days for Elvis, to gain more emotional control over all of this. I'm sure we've all been on vacations where we think, sure would like to have another couple of weeks of this. And that's what Elvis is thinking. And Elvis, unlike us, has $1 million in the bank account that he can look at and say, why am I going back to work right now? But that mask and camouflages a very large financial need that he has every week to make the payroll. And he knows that as well. So this is all weighing upon him. And Dr. Nick is now, he's got to make a decision. So Dr. Nick explained it all to Colonel Parker. And Dr. Nick says, Parker asked that I, quote, encourage Elvis to get to Hollywood as soon as his health permits, unquote. So Dr. Nick did it. When asked, he stepped up to the plate and he said, I've looked at Elvis and he does need some more rest. And these saddle sores are going to be awful painful to travel with. And you'd be better off just to give him a few more days. Not going to work out once he gets there. It's not medically going to work out because he's going to be in so much pain. And of course, I'm sure Elvis was grateful for this. And Dr. Nick says, as I was driving out the gate, one of his guys waved me down. So Dr. Nick is on his way out again. Now remember, he's already left once. He's gone and seen Grandma. Now he's come back. And he's driven out here to start with when he wouldn't have normally driven out anywhere like this. Now he's finally leaving. And they're waving him down again. And the guy, Dr. Nick says, the guy says, Elvis wants to know if you could come back. Well, I thought, at least I saved gas. So Dr. Nick turns the car around and heads on back into the Circle G. And he says that when he sees Elvis, Elvis says, if you've got a few minutes, I'd like to show you my land. So Elvis then shares his dream with Dr. Nick, not by telling him in words about his dream, this dream of the Circle G, but by showing him the lands and the proof of his deeds, the things that have already been done in the few weeks that he's been there. Now, Gunn says that he likes clam bake. I actually don't think it's a terrible movie. I think you've got to look at it through Elvis's eyes in that period, like he did a lot of the other movies, that it wasn't up to the standard that he wanted. He saw something greater. And he thought that the studio saw it in him and that they would one day provide it to him. And unfortunately, that's not the way the studios worked. They worked by return on investment. And he became such a guaranteed investment in a very particular vehicle that it would have been foolish on their part to encourage him to do anything else. They needed that money that he brought in to finance riskier projects. Now, what Elvis wanted was to be the riskier project. But that didn't always come with the same financial reward. And there had been times when he had signed the contracts when he had been in fear of the future. Remember when Elvis started, there was always a rumor that this was it for rock and roll. It's about to wrap up. We're in the last month. George Klein even got fired as a DJ of rock and roll. It's not going to last, George. We can't continue to finance this, is what the radio station said. We can't bet on this thing with the kids. It's not going to make it. Now, here we are, 2025. Rock and roll seems to still be going. It's not exactly what it was, but it's still going. People are still starting their careers inspired by Elvis. So that didn't exactly come true. But every year, every day, no matter what he was in, whether it was the films or the songs, the records, the TV, whatever it was about to fall apart. Because that's the way the entertainment industry is. It's always about to fall apart. And so he was always insecure about the future, as well as Vernon. So the Colonel kind of felt the same way, and they built contracts that solved, I'm not saying that word right, but salved those fears. You know, it made them okay because they got a lot of money up front and they were guaranteed work for years into the future. Long-term contract is very attractive at the beginning of the contract with a big payment. It's very unattractive at the end of the contract when it's not working out the way that you'd hoped it would. That's kind of what Elvis is facing, I think, with Clambake. But I think because he went and did it and did a good job, even though he didn't really want to be there, that's what we see. And we see it as it's not that bad a movie, really. And Dr. Nick says, I guessed Elvis was feeling better after my treatment. We climbed into a heavy-duty, dusty white pickup truck, and Elvis drove us over a good part of his 163 acres of beautiful rolling fields. We had a nice visit. I found Elvis to be a naturally warm person and an interesting conversationalist. I got the impression he simply wanted to talk to someone different from the guys in his inner circle and to share his pride in the setup that they had put together. In all the years that followed, I would never again see Elvis look as relaxed as he did that day. And Marion is saying, praise Dr. Nick, sometimes the body and soul need time to recover. And Gunn saying, Elvis saw something greater. We saw only Elvis, and we're happy with just seeing Elvis. Keith saying that Elvis made it through the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. He made a huge mark. And Gunn says that he guesses Elvis felt trapped with all the movies for many years. Understandable. I think the movies were like any other hobby. It happened to be his profession, but he'd do something to death. He'd get on a kick about eating something, and he'd eat it till he couldn't eat it anymore. He got onto this kick about the ranch, and he built his dream till he couldn't build it anymore. He bought as many horses as he could possibly shove in at the Graceland barn, till he could not buy any more physically and put there. He did the same with the slot cars one year. He loved to race slot cars for just a short time, but he was into it. And he had a whole bunch of these hobbies. And he stuck with the movies for a long, long time. And what had been so fun at first, it just became rote and a rut and a trap, just like you're saying. That's the way he felt at the end there. But I don't think he let it bleed over too much into any of the performances. Although I do think it informs his 1970s performances of his songs during his concerts. I mean, I think that some of the pain and anguish that we hear, some of what he felt in the 60s. And Dr. Nick is saying that this Circle G and the riding of the horses, as far as he can tell, even as early as 3 weeks into it, it was great for Elvis because it relaxed him so much. And he's confirming what we've been seeing, confirmed by everybody else who was there, that Circle G was the emotional apex of Elvis's life. The one place where he felt momentarily free. He had a lot of other victories. He still got the 1968 special coming up. Still got the Return to Live performances, 1969. Still has the Aloha in Hawaii special coming up in 73. Has a lot of smaller accomplishments in between there. New songs, new hits. It's still coming. But the one place he ever felt free was right here at the Circle G. Right before he got married. Maybe right after he got married. But certainly Dr. Nick is seeing him right before he got married. And Elvis, he drives this dream with Dr. Nick. They drive all over the property. And Elvis doesn't confess the pain of his blocked dreams and what he still strives to accomplish. He just shows the land and what has already been done and lets Dr. Nick dream about what could be done. And Dr. Nick says, when I finally got into my car to leave, Elvis said he had one other reason for asking me to return. Elvis said, I forgot to thank you. And Dr. Nick replied, if you really want to thank me, you can let me go home and not call me back. Dr. Nick says Elvis thought that was funny and he enjoyed a good chuckle. I told him, I am not joking. But Elvis didn't believe me. So Dr. Nick, as impressive a person as Elvis could be, and I think if any of us had been there, we would have been extremely impressed. Very happy to get this tour of the Circle G. Dr. Nick's ready to go home, get his dinner, spend his time with his family. And he's got some work to do. He's got some homework to do for Elvis. And Dr. Nick says that the next day, I went to Graceland. So he doesn't go to the Circle G, he goes to Graceland to examine Elvis again and give him copies of the letters I had mailed to Colonel Parker for the insurance company. So Dr. Nick went home and he wrote these letters. Wasn't enough just to call Colonel Parker. Dr. Nick had to provide documentation. So he went home and he wrote letters. And this was before fax machines or email. He had to address an envelope, put those letters into it, put a stamp on it, get it into a mailbox. And then he had to bring copies, which I don't even know how he copied them. Perhaps he had access to a copy machine. So it would have been early copy machine days. Possibly he had someone who worked for him, like Barbara Little, complete the paperwork early that morning at the office. I don't know. But he had to get these done. He had to get them into the mail because people were depending on them to explain. You know, he says for the insurance company. Well, that's the company that's insuring the loss of non-production. If the movie doesn't come through, if something happens to Elvis and or something, you know, like a whole set was to burn down and you couldn't finish the movie, that's when this insurance company would step in to take care of the investors. They're not going to take care of Elvis. They're going to take care of the investors. Elvis has already been taken care of because he's already received his initial payment. The colonel was always very, very good about that. And Dr. Nick says, I obtained a very brief medical history to insert into his patient file. At that time, Elvis confided that insomnia had been a major problem for him throughout his life, and he sometimes took sedatives to help him sleep. So later on, especially if you're following the mystery of August 16th, 1977, our other series that we're going to be getting back to real soon, Dr. Nick plays a critical role there. And we see different prescriptions that he's given Elvis in 1977. And we'll be taking a look at some others and ones that he got earlier. But this is the very beginning of it. Elvis is telling Dr. Nick, I need sedatives to sleep, and I have an issue with insomnia. he has an issue with insomnia. And Elvis also shared that he occasionally took amphetamines to help him sleep, or to help him stay awake when he drove across country, since he didn't like to fly, and to make the early morning call times on the movie set. So this is where we're going to leave it today. Dr. Nick is learning about Elvis's past medical history. Things about the prescriptions are starting to come out. Dr. Nick will now become involved. And we'll see this play out across the course of his life. But for today, we've got to leave it there. And we're going to go out with a song that describes Donna Presley's experience herself as a teenager, age 17, here on the Circle G. And we just heard from Danny Smith that he also lived here. Wasn't a teenager yet, but he was one of the children that lived on this ranch. And just like with Donna, he gave us everything.
Oh, 17, snow on the ground, Circle G, love all around. He bought that ranch, opened the gate, said come on in, let's celebrate. Tractor pulling through the snow, laughter rising, spirits glow. Both behind, wives and men, family fun again and again. He wasn't just a star in lights, he was the warmth in winter nights. Kindness wrapped in velvet flame, a heart that never played the fade. He gave us joy, he gave us grace, a piano song in a quiet place. From a jack to a king, in the moonlight ring, he gave us love, he gave us wings. Circle G, where the angels sing, he gave us everything. Riding horses, lakes so still, bridge and cross on the quiet hill. Barbecue smoke, stories told, moments more precious than gold. He asked me who I'm dating now, what I dream, what I'd allow. He cared like kin, not just a name. He lived for love, not for acclaim. He wasn't just a voice on stage, he was the soul behind the page. A man who'd sing to heal your day and laugh the midnight blues away. He gave us joy, he gave us grace, a piano song in a quiet place. From a jack to a king, in the moonlight rain, he gave us love, he gave us grace. Gave us everything. Oh, he lived like a shadow in the night, famous face, but heart so bright. Couldn't walk the street like you and me, so he built a world where we were free. us everything. Yes, he gave us everything.